keep in mind during these rotten years at the federal government where we're facing cuts, we're going to foot the bill. So normally a building this scale, that usually is, everyone says, yay, it's going to offer some tax relief. In this case, it's the other way around. It's a burden. So I would like to see this also, that there's some discussion, and we did talk about it. I would like to see the developers come back and really look at that, look at tier one. And again, I'd like to see us understand the moment and reduce our inclusionary housing ordinance to 10% and invest in things like those Wesley buildings, invest in helping people stay in their homes in Evanston, invest in starter homes. I rarely hear us talk about starter homes. That's what brings families and long-term residents who stay and shop at our local businesses. So that's what I think we need to do, is really look at how can we can't afford this, point blank. I am about affordability. I'm about affordable housing. I'm about affordability for our residents, for our property owners downtown, for our large property owners that are trying to rent their spaces. The rent for those will only go up when we shift that tax burden. So let's be smart about this. Let's embrace our community that's here now and not put upward pressure on them even more.
Thank you, Councilmember Clare Kelly. This isn't blocking a building. She's fighting to protect your wallet. She's pushing for 10% inclusionary housing, which is even better than Tier 1 because it makes developers pay their full property taxes upfront instead of leaving residents with a $40 to $50 million bill. This isn't complicated. It's about whether council stands with the people or with the developers, point blank.
What it boils down to me is how urban do we want to get downtown? I'm in favor of much more urban. But at some point more becomes too much, and it's hard to quantify that. But for me, in a qualitative judgment, this building is just more than I can accept. So I am not going to be supporting the current design as is. It is my hope that the developer can come back to us with something somewhat scaled down.
Councilmember Jonathan Newsma has a record of siding with developers over his residents. But when Clare Kelly exposed how Tier 3 would dump a $40 to $50 million bill on taxpayers, even he had to stop and think. For once, Newsma put his constituents' wallets before the developers. Question is, will he continue to take his time and think of the residents first instead of lockstep with the developers?
Heard concerns from other people up here at the dais. Some people are full-throated supporters of this project. So I think we're in different places. I do have concerns about us trying to negotiate from the dais. We've gotten into trouble with this before. We recently just paid out a three-figure settlement, as well as covering legal fees and staff time during that. Six figures, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my three figures because I have a K afterwards. I'm sorry. Six figures, thank you for the correction. I'm really watching your tax dollars. So I just have concerns about us negotiating from the dais. I have concerns about tabling it while we do that. And so if we're going to be negotiating with the developers, which it sounds like a lot of people would like to do, I would prefer that this go back to Land Use Commission so that any negotiation that we look at is fully vetted. And so I would like to make that motion. If we are making changes to this project, that it be referred back to the Land Use Commission so they can fully vet any of the changes that are being proposed, whether that be the inclusionary housing ordinance, whether that be any of the site allowances that are being granted, and make sure that we really are on firm legal standing and not trying to just fly by the seat of our pants up here. So that is an official motion. So.
Councilmember Matt Rogers backed Councilmember Clare Kelly and said 605 Davis needs to go back to land use to be vetted properly. He reminded everyone what happens when deals are rushed, like the situation at Church and Dodge, where Councilmember Bobby Burns' push landed the city in a six-figure settlement. Rogers is right. Slow it down, get it right, and protect residents from paying the price. Thank you, Councilmember Rogers.
I'll briefly speak to this motion, but I still want to keep my order in the other one. I just want to say if you read through what Corporation Counsel said about that settlement, is that we weren't admitting any guilt. I believe the feeling is that we could have won there. They sued because they could in this country. So I just want to make that clear, because people keep trying to toss that out as if it was settled. It was not settled in a way that I think people are describing as if we did something wrong. They had the capacity to sue. They were a law firm. And I believe they used those resources to sue the city. So they sued because they could, not because they had a good case. And that's all for this one. Thank you.
Member Bobby Burns tried to explain away the Church and Dodge settlement. He said those lawyers had a right to sue and the city simply chose to settle, not because the city couldn't win, but because they decided to hand out a six-figure payout anyway. That's the kind of decision-making that leaves residents asking, whose money is really being protected here?
Privileged to even be able to build up our downtown in ways that some of the city's neighbors, neighborhoods next to us can't do, because they don't have the same interest in their city as we do. I am interested, though, in the other tiered options. Councilmember Kelly, I think, brought up tier one as an option. I can't sit here and say that I wouldn't feel like this was a better project if we could have some affordable housing and more taxes earlier in the process. If we can make that happen, I would love to see it.
Councilmember Bobby Burns surprised some by agreeing with Councilmember Clare Kelly, which never happens, hardly ever, that the tiers should be examined more closely, but he insisted it stayed at council, not go back to land use. Interesting shift, considering not long ago Burns, Harris, Nuzma, Hedekais voted for 0% inclusionary housing before it was bumped up to 15%, a move that gave developers a fat gift and left residents with a burden. Now even Burns is inching closer to Clare's 10% argument. Finally, they see the light.
I'm not interested in working hard to preserve a vacant lot downtown. I'm also not super into the proposal that's before us. I don't think it's in the interest of the city for this to be negotiated by council members individually or in meetings with the developer that aren't public. When I started on council, the Albion was my first thing. Or not my first thing, but very early in my time, I saw the downside of any sort of perceived private discussions. I think that having maximum transparency here is important. I will also say, like every other District 65 parent in Evanston, I just got the email with the school closure scenarios. I don't want to play around and lose this. I don't want to give more than we need to, and I think having maximum public transparency on something that this is important for the city of Evanston is critical. And that's why I support Council Member Rogers' motion.
Councilmember Tom Suffredin made it clear residents shouldn't be hit with more taxes just to give developers a break. He also called out a bigger problem: council members holding long private meetings with developers without telling the public. Which council members do you think those are? Take a guess. They sure do love Daniel Biss. Then we have Chrissy Harris, Sean Isles, Juan Hedekais. Lord help us. No independent thought, just staying on script. Did they even listen to Claire, Matt, even Jonathan and Bobby? The discussion was about not burdening residents, but they acted like they couldn't hear it. And out of nowhere, Chrissy Harris volunteered that she hasn't seen any kickbacks. No one on the dais said anything about kickbacks, so...
The interest of full transparency, if you didn't see the previous committee meeting, I am a full-throated supporter I'm not asking you for anything additional than you've already put in your application. I feel really strongly we need to increase our housing supply. We have a crisis of affordability, and there is a direct tie in a community between the housing supply or lack of it and the number of unhoused people in the community.
So, as I stated in planning development, I'm very much in favor of it as is. I also want to point out how awesome this system we have is. So, one small change delays everything, and I think construction costs and inflation are going up. This is part of the problem, and part of the problem also, like as we go through the rest of the comprehensive plan and zoning, is let us be clear what we want and don't want so we don't have this continual dance.
Because I most definitely, I think people always think we get a kickback. And I ain't seen that yet. Don't want to see it, but we don't. And it isn't about getting money. I still haven't said where I fall. I'm struggling. I like the land use, to go back, but this is a hard one for me. I'm in favor of